Salutations, fellow readers, writers, and killers of time on YouTube. My name is Martha Jones, and I would like to use the androgynous sounds of my voice to say a few words about sexism in the publishing industry. Since the days of King Alfred, way back in the year 927, England, and therefore America later on, was a patriarchy. To the publishing industry, that meant the next 1,000 years' worth of books were going to be written by pale males for pale males. The few exceptions to this rule were almost exclusively wealthy pale females like Mary Shelley, or pale females who took male monikers like George Eliot. Today, the publishing industry, to the casual observer, appears to be dominated by women. As an author, I've taken to opening my query letters with "Dear Madam or Sir," the likelihood of my correspondence reaching a female editor, reviewer, or agent is so high. And yet, it seems I live in an age when white-haired men of a certain disposition can visit my booth at book festivals, and without so much saying hello, kick off a bewildering conversation by asking, why do women in writing insist on being called author, not authoress? True story. I could not have been more astonished or outraged if the man had called me names and slapped my face. So, what do you say to that as a mature, confident woman who had hoped we as a society were past all this? I didn't know at the time, but on my third or so draft of rewriting this scene in my head the way it should have gone, I should have said, "Well, sir, we don't call ourselves authoress for the same reason you don't call your MD a doctoress or your legal representative a lawyeress. The title should denote enough respect to make gender irrelevant." This incendiary event led me to wonder for the first time just how common is sexism in the publishing industry, especially since I had hitherto assumed it was biased in favor of women, not against it. So I asked the internet about it. Julie Crisp, editor at Tora UK, seems to be one of the few industry pros who says it is not at all common. She says the reason they publish more men than women is because they have a greater number of men submitting their manuscripts. In stark contrast, the ladies at Tramp Press of Ireland report an infuriating number of industry peers who dismiss their work outright and telling them, "I don't read women's fiction," as though it's beneath them to do so. And let's not forget the attitudes like those famously summed up by writer and activist Norman Mailer. I can only say that the sniffs I get from the ink of the women are always fey, old hat, quaintsy, goisy, tiny, too dykily psychotic, crippled, creepish, fashionable, frigid, outer baroque, maquille in mannequin's whimsy, or else bright and stillborn. Readers under the age of 40 might be wondering, who the hell is Norman Mailer? The over 40 crowd might remember him as the controversial writer man who advocated for the release of cold-blooded killers in exchange for exclusive exposé material and stabbed his wife with a penknife. What a guy. Maybe that's what separates the authors from the authoresses. In the spirit of adding journalistic significance to my otherwise typical YouTube rage rant, I asked my buddy Amanda Lampkin, founder of Line by Line Publications, for her take on sexism in the industry. She said in her experience, she has noticed a difference between masculine and feminine writing styles, but not necessarily an inequity. Women, says Lampkin, tend to be more descriptive. Men tend to be matter-of-fact in their writing styles, which can be good. But especially for first-time male authors, the manuscript often reads like a list of events with lots of telling and little showing. My dad and I did this when I was growing up. Then we did this, and soon we did that. She went on to report that she, as a female publisher, finds she has less credibility than men whose publishing houses have suffered multiple bankruptcies. At promotional events where she's representing the publishing house, men and women come up to her on the regular after she's told them she is the publisher and ask to speak with her husband, assuming he's in charge by virtue of his, arts endowment. And as far as diva-style behaviors are concerned, Lampkin says the phrase, "I work with you, not for you," has crossed my lips a couple of times, and it has always been with the men. So sexism, though less obvious than it was in the days of the suffragettes, is still a thing. And that sucks. However, my personal source of hope for the publishing world comes from the fact that when I left high school, I did not know who J.K. Rowling was. But I knew who Harry Potter was. In those days, there were only 4 books in the series, and I did not know or care that someone wrote them, while someone else delegated the editing, the printing, and the cover art to a bunch of other someones. For all I knew, the books were made by elves. All that mattered to me, as a consumer of these books, was the quality of the writing. That said, the reason we know her as J.K. Rowling is because when she was broke and shopping her book around to a thus far Potterless literary world, she feared publishers would evaluate her work less favorably if they knew from the start that she was a woman. Do you think she was right? And if she had presumed the best of people, submitted her work as a woman, and the folks at Bloomsbury had been a tad more biased, even by accident, against female writers, would we be trying to escape reality in a book world wherein Harry Potter never existed? I don't know the answer to those questions. I do know that having a genre dubbed women's fiction feels like both a helpful and an unhelpful step in the battle for equality. On one hand, it calls attention to the concept that women write stuff. On the other hand, it sets their work apart, leading critics of the genre to think, okay ladies, if you can't gain traction among your male peers, isn't introducing a separate judging system in the form of women's fiction kind of like conceding you are, as they say, not bad for a girl? Also, as Lampkin pointed out in the course of my speaking with her on the subject, we have not and will not publish authors merely to satisfy arbitrary quotas. If we start checking off boxes like gay guy, trans person, or Pacific Islander, we lower our standards and cheapen our product. A valid point that no publisher should feel obligated to publish someone because she's a dyslexic woman or he's a gay druidic shaman. The publisher should only feel obligated to publish a book when the writing is exceptional. Or, if it'll make a crap ton of money. So, I guess the moral of the story is, keep writing quality work whatever your sex or orientation. Whenever possible, treat the sexist assholes to a heaping handful of whatever salt and sulfur helped you get this far in your life. And no matter what pompous pale males of a certain age might tell you, author is a gender-neutral title. So there. Thank you so much for giving this video a shot. I post whenever the day job allows. If you saw or heard something you like, please, oh please, like and subscribe. Until next time, take it easy. Loves you. Bye.